They called them weddings, but in the north, under skies heavy with the breath of Odin, weddings were never about love. They were pacts, sealed not with kisses, but with blood, smoke, and steel. When a Viking king took a bride, the gods watched, and they demanded a price. It began with the drums, slow, thunderous, echoing through the fjord like the heartbeat of the world. The bride was carried to the feast hall, not gently but forcefully, lifted by warriors whose faces were streaked with ash. They said a woman's struggle brought strength to the bond, that resistance made the marriage holy. If she walked too calmly, the omen was bad, because the gods, like men, only respected what they had to conquer. Inside the longhouse, smoke clung to the rafters like ancient spirits. The air reeked of mead, pine, and iron. At the center stood a great bowl, the hlautboli, filled with the blood of a horse freshly slain. The king would dip a branch into it and sprinkle the guests, the hall, the bride himself. Each drop a prayer, each stain a promise. For no bond, they believed, was real until the dead bore witness. Then came the cup, the bragaful, the sacred drink. Honey, ale, and sometimes blood, mixed together in one vessel. The bride and groom would swear their vows over it, not promises of love, but of strength, of conquest, of lineage. When they drank, it was not just to each other, but to the gods, to the ancestors who demanded continuation. The sweetness of the honey was for life, the bitterness of the blood for death, and they drank both willingly. When the feast was done and the torches dimmed, the bride was led to the chamber. The chants began, low, rhythmic, ancient. Voices of women who had done this before, voices that knew what awaited her. The bed was not made of silk, but of wolf and bear hides. The scent of fur and sweat mingled in the cold night air, and between them lay a sword, sometimes his father's, sometimes his own. It divided them until dawn, a blade of iron to remind them that even love must answer to war. The bride's transformation began before sunrise. Her family stripped her of her maiden garments and washed her in water drawn from a sacred spring, so cold it burned the skin. It was a symbolic death. The girl who entered the water never returned. The woman who rose from it belonged to another clan, another destiny. Then came the hair. A Viking woman's hair was her soul, her magic. And on her wedding day it was unbound, then braided again, not by her mother but by the groom's kin. Each strand a thread of surrender woven into his bloodline. But some sagas whisper darker things, that if omens were ill, a raven's call, a flame flicker, her hair would be cut instead, her spirit severed, her beauty offered to the gods as warning. As the dawn broke, gifts were exchanged. Ships, silver, slaves, the dowry. But every treasure carried a curse. Gold, the Vikings said, was the blood of dragons. It brought death to those who loved it too much. So before the chest was opened, they prayed to Freya, goddess of love and sorcery, asking her to bless the wealth, to guard it from the undead who still coveted gold beneath the earth. Yet there were times when the chest was opened and there was no gold, only bones. A message from a rival clan, a reminder that no fortune outlasts the grave. The feasts went on for 9 days, 9 the sacred number of Odin, the god who hanged himself from the tree of life to learn the secrets of death. Each night, the guests drank deeper, sang louder, and by the 3rd day, madness often set in. Men painted their faces with blood and danced like wolves. Women called to the gods of fertility, their voices shaking the rafters. And in the chaos, anything could happen. Some say the gods walked among them on those nights, testing men's hearts, claiming the weak, rewarding the bold. There's a tale told in the north of King Harold Fairhair's wedding. They say the mead flowed so freely that 3 men died in a drunken brawl, and the bride vanished before the final feast. When they found her, she was wandering the woods barefoot, whispering that the storm had called her name. They took it as a sign that even the gods envied her beauty. To the Vikings, marriage wasn't about affection, it was about balance, the joining of fire and frost, male and female, strength and surrender. It mirrored the creation of the world itself, born from the clash of chaos and ice. If a marriage pleased the gods, the kingdom prospered. If it didn't, crops failed, sons died, and the curse followed generations. There were brides who vanished before their vows, girls whose names the skalds never sang. They say they drowned themselves in the fjords rather than be given to a man chosen for power, not love. Others were sacrificed outright, offered to the gods when omens soured, their blood poured where the feast would be held. The priests called it a cleansing. The poets called it tragedy. But the darkest tale of all is of Astrid the Pale, a royal bride so beautiful the torches dimmed when she entered. Her father promised her to a warlord twice her age, and on her wedding night, she wept until her tears froze on her skin. By morning she was found cold and still, a frost statue in her bridal gown. They buried her in ice, and swore that every bride who felt a chill on her wedding night was being touched by Astrid's ghost. When Christianity came to the north, it tried to bury these old ways. The priests took away the swords, the blood, the chants. They replaced the sacrifice with a blessing, the ritual with a prayer. But the old spirits lingered. Even now, in the far villages of Norway and Iceland, they say that on a wedding night, if you listen closely, you can still hear the sound of distant drums, the echo of a people who believed love was too fragile to exist without fear. That joy meant nothing without pain, that every promise must be written in the language of blood. And maybe they were right, because every vow we make today, every ring we slide onto a trembling hand, still carries the same whisper that haunted Viking kings. Nothing binds the living like the memory of blood. The feasting fires burned through the night, but beneath the laughter and drinking horns, something older, something darker, stirred. The wedding of a Viking noble was not just a union of flesh and blood. It was a ritual pact between gods, ancestors, and fate itself. And as the drums beat in rhythm with the sea, every man and woman in attendance knew this was no mere celebration. It was an offering. After the sacred vows, the newly joined couple were led to the Hof, the temple. There, under torchlight and carved idols of Odin, Freya, and Thor, the high priest performed rites that blurred the line between love and death. A white horse was brought before the couple. Its throat was cut, its blood caught in a great bronze bowl. The priest would then dip a bundle of sacred twigs, hlautin, into the blood and sprinkle it upon the guests, the idols, and finally the bride and groom. It was said to purify them. But the crimson stains on their faces looked more like marks of possession. The bride's tears, if she wept, were taken as a good omen, signs that the gods had entered her spirit. If she did not cry, if she stood still and proud, it was whispered she might be cursed, one of the Huldras, women of the forest who had stolen human shape to deceive men. And so, sometimes, when a bride showed no emotion, the women of the village would gather around her in secret, chanting old runes to draw out her true soul. If she screamed during the ritual, she was saved. If she didn't, her fate was sealed. When night fell, the newlyweds were escorted to the bridal chamber, a long house room filled with smoke, mead, and song. But it was not private. The guests would crowd outside, listening. They had to hear the sounds of the union, proof that the marriage was sealed. If silence lingered too long, the groomsmen would barge in, laughing, shouting, to encourage the couple. To them, modesty was weakness and pleasure was sacred. For Viking nobles, the bride's purity was not just her own, it was her family's honor, her tribe's luck. If there were rumors of infidelity, the groom could demand a blood oath. She would have to swear before the gods on a sword, its blade drawn that she was untouched. Should she falter or hesitate, it was said that Odin himself would curse her womb. And yet beneath all this cruelty there was beauty, twisted, violent beauty. For the Vikings believed that every joy demanded pain, every love required sacrifice. Their weddings were not about romance, they were about legacy, power, and survival. To marry was to bind your fate to the storm, to surrender to the will of gods who fed on chaos and courage alike. When dawn came, the couple emerged from their chamber, pale and marked. The priest would raise his staff and proclaim them one flesh under the eyes of the Aesir. The guests cheered, but their cheers sounded almost like war cries. The feast would continue, and sometimes, if the omens were ill, a slave would be taken and buried alive beneath the threshold of the new home, as a guardian spirit for the couple's future. It was a mercy, they said, to die on a wedding day, because even death feared to interrupt a Viking bond. So the songs went on, the sea roared in approval, and somewhere in the night among the graves and the gods, the spirits smiled, hungry, ancient, and eternal. For in the north, love was never gentle. It was forged in fire, sealed in blood, and remembered in the sagas only by those who dared to survive it.